What is up, Ascenders? Welcome to another episode of Awaken, where we have conversations to assist you in ascending your consciousness and actualizing your highest purpose and potential. I'm your host, Bryan Henry, and I'm a transformation coach and the founder of Together We Ascend and the Ascend Academy. And today I am super excited to be sharing with you this conversation that I got to have with intuitive channel Brooklin Rayne. But just before we jump into that, I have some exciting news to share if you haven't heard it already. These past couple episodes were the first that we've done in this new chapter that we've stepped into, in which we've brought the show to being a live experience. With this, not only will you have the opportunity to be in the energy of these conversations as they're happening live, but you'll also get the chance to ask your own questions to the guests that we have on the show. All of these experiences are going to be absolutely free to join. If you're interested, all you need to do is head on over to the Ascend Academy's community platform to sign up, and it's here that you'll be kept in the loop of all of the gatherings, all of the Awaken Live episodes, everything that's taking place in the Together We Ascend community. And it's where you'll get the chance to stay connected with other Ascenders on the journey as we continue to support each other in ascending together. If you're interested in joining us on the platform and perhaps at a future Awaken Live gathering, head on over to academy.togetherweascend.com and join us on our community's platform. And lastly, if you're new here and you're interested in continuing to receive this content being created to assist you in your ascension process, I invite you to subscribe to the podcast or our YouTube channel wherever you're listening to this from. And with that, what do you say we jump into another conversation on Awaken? This one is with Brooklin Rayne. Who are we and what are we capable of? These are questions that I know many, if not all of us, consciously on a path of spiritual and personal growth eventually begin to ask. Today, we are so very fortunate to be joined by someone that is here and able to help us explore greater depths to the answers of these big questions. Brooklin Rayne is an intuitive channel, heart oracle, and quantum field interpreter who bridges the gap between the seen and unseen. As I'm sure we're about to experience, through her direct communication with Source, she creates a field that catalyzes alchemical shifts within the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of one's being. By doing so, she helps cultivate truly transformative spaces for us to reclaim our original divine blueprint and remember who we are. Have you had the opportunity to unveil the truth that you're an immaculate organic source super technology? Do you recognize the important role that the physical body plays in what most are calling the ascension process? There's a reason Brooklyn chooses to call it Incension instead, and I think we're about to find out what that reason is. Today, Brooklyn is here to remind us that we are the powerful programmers of our divine source technology and carry within us codes that, when activated, well, that part you're going to have to stick around with us to find out. I share from personal experience that she's an absolutely extraordinary being, as we've had the opportunity to get to know her and have her teach and share in the Together We Ascend community for the last couple of years now. We've had her on the podcast a couple times. She's spoken at the Together We Ascend Summit, and she's also taught in the Ascend Academy's activated members community. So it's with great honor and pleasure that I yet again get the opportunity to provide her this platform to share the profound wisdom that I'm used to getting to experience through her. Brooklyn, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Awaken.
Thank you so much for having me here. I am so grateful and honored and excited to be with all these amazing beings here and to share in what feels like such a profoundly expansive, celebratory, creational energy that is flowing through the human collective experience right now, and all the different layers of what that means. And so I'm loving the omnipotence and the omnipresence that everybody that's here and gathered is bringing forth and igniting in our sharing. And, would be remiss not to mention, and of course, I didn't know this in advance, maybe you did, but, today is a blue moon, full moon. And, and that in and of itself is bringing just yet another huge invitation to, how we can receive whatever is co-created in our connection field today, and how we are, able to expand within our cellular technology, the divine grace and igniting that comes through. So all that to say, I'm really excited. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. So before we
Yeah.
continue to explore the depths of that profound wisdom that I've already touched on, and it seems you already wanted to get started with opening up, I first would like you to mention if there's any gaps or anything else that you'd like to add to my introduction for you.
No, it's always a beautiful, it's always so humbling and beautiful to receive someone else's love and expression, and of you, right? When we're put in that place of receiving, it brings forth awarenesses of how we can open up to receiving even more. And so in other words, it's uncomfortable to have someone share or has historically been uncomfortable to have someone share an introduction and talking about what this person does, and but you do it with such a tremendous amount of love and grace, and so yes, no, it was beautiful, and thank you for sharing the introduction.
I'm glad you liked it. Although I do want to add that I don't think there's anything I can say that will fully encapsulate just the value and what I've personally received in the experience of connecting with and learning from you. And again, I just want to say I'm really excited for the rest of us that are here present to get to experience that too. So with that being said, I have my first question for you, and it's, why Incension?
Yeah, what a profound topic of exploration, again, with mentioned all the energies that are flowing in and through and upon us and within us and around us. And so, I don't know at what point on this, journey of spiritual seeking and, getting to know thyself more and more, that it really dropped into awareness, that, what we often have heard of as ascension, right, really kind of leads us many times, and can lead us oftentimes, into this quest of feeling as though there's something above us or outside of us that has the answers and the keys and the wisdom and the technology to igniting the greatest expression, of ourselves, right? Our I am presence, or however, reaching enlightenment. And whereby, of course, we know it is within and outside and all around, and everything exists simultaneously, right? So it's certainly not a linear concept, if you will. But when brought forth the expression of Incension, it was being shown that it's this particular experience that we are being invited to participate in, of course, albeit all very uniquely so, right? We each have our own unique blueprints and designs of how we've pre-chosen and now currently are choosing, how to express ourselves here in the human experience. And everybody's blueprint is unique, and everybody's blueprint of Incension or ascension within that total blueprint is unique. And yet, the overall collective invitation that is sort of the generalization, if you will, of this golden age of ascension in terms of what the one of the ultimate goals of it is to bring everything that is currently participating here in way of consciousness within the collective body, within the ancestral bodies, within the physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies of humanity, of Earth, and all of its inhabitants, to bring it into its most accelerated, its most exalted state of crystalline divinity and union. And of course, many have different ways in which they perceive this system of Incension, this system of collective rising of consciousness, and and within that comes the freedom and the sovereignty and the resurrection of existing beyond the veils of illusion, right? So this is just one way of describing what could be infinitely described, if you will. So here we are, and we're here at this time of collective invitation. And it's not to say that there haven't been other moments within the space-time continuum, within the evolutionary stages of creation and existence of Earth in its many names, most often now referred to through me as, and many others as Sophia Gaia or Gaia Sophia, right? There have been so many different blueprints, if you will, throughout the ages of different opportunities and invitations of ascension or incension. But really more so how they've shown it is ascension during those times, which was the overall alignments, astrological, numerological, planetary, the poles of the Earth, etc. The overall alignments in previous periods of time when there have been assisting energies that have created invitations for beings to rise in their consciousness and become enlightened, have not been in, to the degree and to the bandwidth of expression that now is through this age of Aquarius and this age of golden ascension or Incension, if you will. So whereas in those periods of time, the overall energetic currency and positioning of the grids and all the different intricacies that go into determining what can bring forth an invitation for collective Incension as is now. We're not in a place of alignment and access whereby one could take all the layers and levels of the highest expression of their crystalline nature, or otherwise expressed at their monadic template or their Christos template, and bring it in and sustain the overall vibrational bandwidth of that within the scope of the collective consciousness and within the scope of the Earth's consciousness during those pockets of time. So during those pockets of time, it was literally, would have been, if you will, more appropriate to call it ascension. Because one would come in to have the human experience and have all different threads of interface of experiences of polarity and so forth as we do now. And yet when they reached a certain pinnacle of their enlightenment, of their self-realization, the different bodies, if you will, of the physical, mental, emotional, and spirit bodies of both humans as the micro and Earth as the macro, were not supportive enough in nature to be able to sustain that high vibrational frequency within physicality. So one would ascend. They would leave their physical body most often behind. Now, as we know, there are always exceptions to the rules, and so there are some caveats there that came forth through certain beings, with certain beings. And for the most part, though, this has been the case for a long time. There have been periods of time that have supported variations of this, and there have been periods of time where some exceptionally, we'll just say qualified beings were able to remain inhabited through some of the more dense layers and falling of human consciousness and remain for hundreds of years in physical form. But for the most part, And since we're talking about, Incension on a collective level, it was not supported to be called Incension at the time. Now, fast forward to this now moment, and here we are, and we're in this very collectively supportive system of whereby humanity, Earth, all beings, seen and unseen, have come into this profound invitation to be able to really go into the depths of all layers and levels of the technology in which we are, and bring heaven to earth, if you will. So, heaven to earth, what does that mean exactly? Well, I'm sure similarly it could be described in so many ways, but heaven to earth in terms of what we're referring to as Incension is to bring those highest expressions of our oversoul, of our monadic templates, of our highest source self expressed, through the physical, mental, emotional, and spirit body, bring them in and allow them to ground and be present within a system of physicality. So remaining here as a physical expression of a human incarnate. Now, that said, once one attains, should they have chosen, predetermined, right, to embody their rainbow Christos template, their rainbow diamond body, or their monadic template, all of those things can kind of work together to describe a system of the embodiment of Incension, enlightenment, being fully within a system of recognition, I am the everything and the no thing, right? So we're now supported. And when I say that, of course, now supported doesn't necessarily translate to every single human, has the capacity in this very now moment that we're having this expression of co-creation to embody their highest monadic template and exist in physicality. But now, meaning this now period of time, which, as we're seeing the dissolves of some of the illusionary veils of what space and time even means, right? Things seem to be moving, much more rapidly, if you will. So the more that we choose to recognize and, within whatever modalities of expression we feel called to, that we are limitless divine potential, and that we have access, and that we have continued access and growing frequencies of supportive nature to participate in this way, then the more and more and more that now moment of supporting that Incension, that embodiment of enlightenment within a physically expressed human form takes place and becomes more and more accessible for the masses. Hopefully that made sense. It's a big system of energy.
Any part of it that didn't make sense to myself or anyone listening here, I think we're gonna flesh out together. I think I want to hear you describe more about what the tangible effects of embodying this. So there's a couple terms there that you threw in that I'm not sure if they're synonymous or different things. Oversoul, monadic template. It seems that these are different ways, correct me if I'm wrong, of describing what we're here to embody.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's just so many different ways, and it's not to say that they're different. They're all interconnected, they're woven. So I just kind of use a lot of the different things will flow through. So as not to, so as to expand one into not getting too hung up on one particular way of expressing, that, right? To know that it's all of those things, right? Kind of working together as a system of bringing us back into oneness. So monadic template Christos template. And when the Christos, from my understanding in this now moment, when the Christos template, which is part of an overall framework, architecture, divine architecture of what is considered the monadic template, and that is what our oversoul, in my awareness, what our oversoul predetermines as the most exalted, divine architecture that we are capable and have potentialized ourselves to activate and embody in a state of enlightenment here as an earth incarnate. So, the oversoul we can think of as like a mothership of our sort of our tiered individual expression as source. It kind of hovers in, and I use this to kind of paint a visualization, but we know it's not this linear. It hovers above and is absolutely present and active within every single moment of our existence here as an earth incarnate. And yet in its totality, which from my vantage point, basically our oversoul is every single fractal of how our unique individuation as source, light, and sound has expressed itself throughout all systems of infinite creation, throughout all space and time, right? So that would be like trying to fit, an elephant through, a pinhole, right? It's like, it's so massive and holds such massive threads, to your beautiful meditation and sharing, such massive filaments and threads of creational source energy throughout so many systems of creation, that it would be at this particular point in the Earth's evolution, and possibly at any particular point in the Earth's evolution, just far too much, too high of a technology to bring into full participation within, the limitations of these lower vibrational, and lower not meaning bad or good, but just lower, lower meaning denser vibrational bandwidths that allow us to experience the richness of a physical experience, right? Our oversoul is simply incompatible. The technology is incompatible with the speed and sound frequencies to fully come in here. However, our monadic template is sort of like, if you think about it in sort of in a fun way, like you're up there, as your oversoul, you're determining you want to come down into this earth incarnation. And so you and, as your oversoul collective are like, let's create a suit, let's create a superhero suit, right? Which is our monadic template. It's our monadic template. It's the blueprint. It's the exalted state of our divine blueprint that, albeit could never hold the totality of expression of the oversoul, as a whole within this physical existence, is uniquely curated and crafted so that it can hold the greatest access of divine technology and advanced consciousness that we've chosen to come through and to expand into here on earth, while remaining in compatibility with wherever we are on a collective level of ascension or incension, if you will, which means to whatever. So even now, let's just take a snapshot to try to bring it into even greater sort of digestibility. Like, let's say, take you for instance. If you were to try to override part of your blueprint, right, to say, nope, I'm going in, guys, I'm coming home. I'm bringing the fullest and highest expression of my monadic template that I've set out to activate throughout the course of this incarnation, and I'm activating him fully right now. It wouldn't be compatible to, it wouldn't likely be able to be expressed in its highest potential and its highest sort of most exalted state at this particular now moment in time, due to the nature of how we come into this earth experience. And we are very much influenced and subject to the variations in the overall collective bandwidth of vibrational frequency of sound and light, right? So it's like we gear it so that we open and activate and become the invitation for others, but it's this beautiful symphony of activate, integrate, await, allow the other activations to take place, and. So yes, so we come in, we have this ultimate expression of our ascension blueprint, our oversoul, our monadic template, and that comes in, and the more and more and more what we're talking about, I think leading into talking more about today, the more and more we prepare our physical body and our mental body and our emotional body and our spirit body by cleaning out and clearing out old programs, by cleaning out and clearing out programs of imprints and so forth that are moving at an incompatible frequency, a lower frequency, that they're void of the light and the sound frequencies of the original source codexes that are inevitably showering within and igniting within each and every one of us uniquely right now. So we've set it up so we're not going to blow any fuses. That's another way to say it, right? We set it up so that we can experience the greatest expression of our version of heaven on earth, whilst trying to create, for the most part, the greatest flow of ease within that, with great grace within that. And some people might say, well, that's not how my experience has been thus far. I've had a couple of massive crash landings and huge, and we do like to change it up and keep it exciting. So we do pop in these little pockets of like massive Kundalini energy flows and things of this nature, which can be a little bit disorienting and fuse blowing. But for the most part, we create our divine design so that we move with the nature, the nature of the collective flow and the collective rising of consciousness.
I think the last piece here that I want to put in place prior to getting to the practical is, you've mentioned a few times now the blueprint, and predetermined was a word that you used in describing it. My question is, what does the blueprint, our blueprints, contain, and how much of it, what is and isn't predetermined and decided after incarnation has taken place, after we first incarnated?
Yeah, I love that question, those questions. So more and more and more it's revealed that we have the ability, as the creators of the lens of perception, right? As those who truly do have access to free will, although, we're in varying degrees and levels of participation with that throughout this experience here, right? Because of the way in which things have been set up and programs and so forth. But we have this magnificent, immaculate blueprint that we've predetermined, and that we established prior to coming in here. And it doesn't necessarily mean within that pre-established blueprint that every single person that we're going to come into contact with as the unique individuation is woven into that blueprint, right? It could be a certain level of embodied criteria, and coordinates, if you will, and programs that we are meant to interface of a particular. So, there are lots of people holding similar combinations of energies, right? So I may have set it up in my blueprint to come into this incarnation and connect with you specifically, right? And yet I may have set it up in my blueprint to at a certain point in time to magnetize a person who holds a specific sort of ratio of programs and and imprints, etc., that mirror the experience that I've predetermined, so that I can have that experience, that I can have, if that makes sense. So most of our blueprint is predetermined. And we really wouldn't have it any other way as our highest source self and oversoul, because we see it, in the flow of divine perfection. Yet that's a really challenging concept for most people to accept and to receive and to celebrate. Because a lot of us, and in particular those that are gathered in these types of levels of conscious conversation at this particular point in time, have come in to do some pretty heavy lifting for the collective of humanity, to experience some pretty deep depths of polarity and polarizing experiences, whether, and there's a whole myriad of them, and we know what we're talking about here. So sometimes, it's to hear that this was predetermined and pre-established is like extremely, challenging for one to wrap themselves around and to accept, because they're like, well, why in the heck would I ever, I don't think so, type of thing, right? But really, if we can come out of identifying, with what, and this is part of, of Incension, like a big part of our ability to bring heaven on earth is to dissolve any identification with the victim-victimizer matrices, which is like this massive system of separation. So if we can come into a higher sort of level of receptibility and acceptability and resonance with our blueprint, and really come, and what that really translates to at any given point in time is come into seeing the divine perfection in every single thing that we've ever experienced and co-created in this lifetime, taking away the layers of judgment and this is good and bad, or this wasn't worthy and this wasn't, and we just embrace it as like the masterpiece of that it is. Then we access greater and greater and greater and greater and more and more rapid trajectory of the the soul and cell alchemy that is part of our ability to come into enlightenment. Because now, instead of resisting, we're inviting, and we're like, okay, let me try it out. I've tried it out this way my whole life, of being like pissed, excuse the languaging, but angry and really like not wanting to accept the fact that this that these things were predetermined. Let me shift it and see what takes place. And a lot of times, just in the playful shifting of it, because we just feel like we've tried everything else out and on and it hasn't worked, like, whoa, okay, wait a second, I'm getting it now. This this was predetermined. So the more we kind of get into the flow of that, we stop judging ourselves. We start loving ourselves. We stop judging our parents. We stop judging others. We start loving them and seeing them as the gurus, and like, how the perfection of the villain that they've chosen to play in this and this and blah, blah, blah. And we just accept it for the divine perfection. We look for the nuggets of, the golden nuggets of growth and expansion and opportunity, and we start to get into that playful participation. Now we're playing out, now we're, now the blueprint, our highest, most exalted blueprint, is in the flow of coming in and coming home. And a lot of people, perhaps not everybody, but a lot of people that I connect with on a regular basis, then sort of get to a playing level, if you will, in this in this video game of life that we're in right now. You get to a playing field and a playing level of being able to transcend your blueprint, and then and starting to write in some additional scripts, if you will, for participation. But really, it comes to a place from my vantage point and what I'm shown at this point in time. It really comes into a deep level of acceptance and love and receptibility of what is already here. Because there's so many gems and jewels in these blueprints. And if we come out of the vantage point of seeing ourselves as the roles and characters we've played, and more as the witnessing presence of the roles and characters we've played, and then we start to get to a place of pure receiving and acceptability of that, game on. we're coming home, and quickly, right? Because now we're not in resistance, and now we're like, okay, let me, and what's the worst thing that can happen? And, and throw in the, and we write the script here, right? We're the programmers. So, hey, I choose to take full responsibility of everything that is in accordance to my highest divine blueprint here, in accordance to the highest divine law and order, right? Which then is perfect, because if we're in some sort of battle with what we, but of not being able to conceptualize having chosen a particular experience, and we just leave it up to our highest self to determine, did I actually choose that before coming in or not, type of thing, right? If we did, great, and we're going to integrate it. If we didn't, it will fall away and melt away.
I'm glad to hear you have already begun to segue into what we can practice in order to allow for this transformation to take place. Just to reiterate some of the points that I'm hearing is trust and surrender. And that what I really loved about what you said is how, well, from how I interpreted that, brings us into a state of receptivity for the alchemical transformation to take place almost naturally. So I think it's time to kind of get more into it. How do we, I guess it really comes down to, what do we practice? How can we best prepare ourselves and allow for this Incension process to take place?
Yeah. Well, so I think we've sort of determined in the questions and answers here that for what's about to be shared in terms of some low-hanging fruit, if you will, of participation, is now I'm at this point. Okay, I'm at this point of receptibility and accepting that I have consciously and unconsciously crafted each and every moment of my experience here, for the most part, right? And we know there's lots of different things playing out in this reality, and lots of different, if you look at it like a video game, there's lots of different characters coming in from the left and right. Some are visible, others are sort of non-invisible, and they're throwing in all different types of levels of difficulty into this video game, right? It's like these systems of weightedness, or like, wow, like, why is this so hard, right? It's not so linear. Like, here we are, now we come into this place like, okay, I'm going to take full responsibility for all my thoughts, words, actions, and feelings that I've participated in. And it's not to say like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay, now there's no interfering energies and nothing else playing, no, this is an intricate system here. We've got all sorts of beings that are like, let's throw some more levels of difficulty in it, right? But if we just surrender and we come into this place of curiosity and of greater neutrality, and we really allow ourselves the spaciousness of identifying with our highest self, identifying as our oversoul, right? Having a human experience, having this earth, physical avatar, and navigating these planes of separation and duality, right? So those are kind of precursors, I would say, kind of getting into that place of saying, okay, I guess I created this whole system of, and now I'm going to rewrite the script and do some things to assist myself in coming into greater enlightenment and ascension, etc. So one great place to begin is with our physical bodies. And, and I think this is where the whole conversation kind of started. So often people are jumping out of their physical body, right? And they're leaving, they're trying to connect with higher beings in different realms and all these things. And those things are all magnificent, and we're part of those, right? Because everything exists simultaneously, and we're having this experience right now, but we exist. Our oversouls are those higher dimensional beings, right? Or parts of the creational fields of that. So we're not separate of that. But a lot of times we get carried away, and we're leaving our bodies, and we're connecting with all these different beings and these realms, and but yet our deepest intention and our desire is to come into a place of awakening, right? Come into a place of enlightenment, come into a place of, freedom and sovereignty and joy and love and all these things. Well, that takes place through the physical body in this time of ascension. So it's leave no cell behind, right? Our Incension process is bringing our oversoul, bringing the highest and most exalted states of access and recognition that we are source and that we're connected to, so many different higher dimensional planes of consciousness, etc. But to be able to access and embody that full awareness and recognition of it is to be able to transition our physical, our carbon-based DNA, our more, sort of the denser DNA within, and begin to transition it into our crystalline DNA. And that can be a little bit confusing, and there's a lot of different ways to describe what that is. And so really quick, I'll throw in, a quick description of that, if there is such a thing, which is, as we come in as a one body complex, even though it, immediately starts to get to a place of fracturing of that, where it feels like our emotional body, our mental body, and our physical body and our spirit body are not a one unified field of cohesive intention and expression, right? But they are. They always are. But it's, it's so okay. So here we are. So we have this carbon-based DNA, right? And again, this is our physical DNA. And when we come in and we accept the invitation, as previously mentioned, we have like an overlay of coordinates of the collective experience to play out, like different lessons. We have the ancestral different lessons to play out that are woven into our carbon-based DNA, right? And then we have our own soul's lessons that are also imprinted and woven into this carbon-based DNA. And again, this is a very simplistic explanation, and we can go, if people have questions that arise to this, please, make note of them. We can go into deeper explanation if we feel guided to in the Q&A. But so as this carbon-based DNA begins to ignite itself and express itself, it's of denser format. It's holding the, sort of this matrix of separation and duality. It's largely facilitating when we first, and this is changing, of course, with the brand new incarnates and stuff, but those of us that are here, we don't have any babies on this call that I'm aware of. So, that carbon-based DNA is holding primarily and ultimately the dual wave technology. So this dual wave system of light and sound codes that allows for us to hold ourselves within the veils of illusion, seeing ourselves as separate, oftentimes separate of source, separate of one another, right? It allows us to fully facilitate and work within the veils of illusion and play out all these different roles and characters before we begin to awaken. Held within the spirit body complex, and it's not this linear, but I'm doing it for the sake of greater digestibility. Held within the spirit body complex is the crystalline DNA potential, our ethereal DNA, which holds our crystalline potential, right? And it awaits, basically, and has been awaiting our coordinates within our blueprint to begin to ignite, where that shift takes place, where we start to say, hey, wait a second, there's more to this. There's more to me than this experience of duality. There's something else there beside my thinking mind. Oh, wait, I think I might, and we start to have a greater embodied awareness of the highest self, right? Of something beyond, the daily ins and outs of participating blindly within this experience. So as that takes place, we begin to ignite the communication pathways, and there's lots of other things playing into it, different systems of, like, whether it's meditation and different healing modalities and receptibilities and receiving of lights that are coming through, and. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll say all of those things are interfacing and playing.
our ethereal DNA, our crystalline DNA begins to the filaments and the threads of communication between the spirit body complex and the physical body complex and all the bodies in between begin to communicate and ignite. And they begin to start to create the transition of moving us out of the system of identity as being, a system of a dual wave system of black and white, we'll just say, or this and that, love and fear, and and all the other expressions of duality, right? And then it starts to ignite the tri-wave frequency, the trinity frequency of divine union recognized within. It starts to ignite that, and it begins to rewire and reframe. Now I'm going to pause for a second there, because so that's like a generalized description of how we begin to ignite our crystalline DNA. But how we participate, right? What our level of participation is that can further catalyze this is, okay, I desire to no longer hold on to fear and anger. And, I desire to no longer see myself and perceive myself and portray myself as a victim. I'm going to start going in and doing the deep inner work. I'm going to start releasing these things. I'm going to start releasing these self-limiting beliefs and so forth through the modalities of breath, through the modalities of meditation and movement, and all these different ways, right? We have energy healing and different systems that are now available to us, scalar technologies and so forth. All of these things ignite these higher levels of source consciousness and technologies within us, right? So we begin and we ignite this journey. But we can look no further than our physical bodies oftentimes, because one of the ways in which is actually extremely challenging, but from a logistical standpoint is very, when you look at it sort of just as it is, quite easy, is begin to purify the body. Begin to really focus on, what am I putting into my physical body? Because everything is energy programmed. Everything is energy. And everything is energy that's been programmed to different degrees. And that's been, constructed in different sort of systems different systems of constructed energy, right? There are massive energy domains, consciousness domains, and then there are more simplistic energy and consciousness domains. So within our physical body, within our physical tissues, are the imprints, right? It holds the imprints of our emotional body imprints, our mental body imprints, even our spirit body imprints. They're held within the physical tissues. And so for us to be able to access those and to ignite those and to make that transition from carbon-based to crystalline in a more efficient way, because we are divine supercomputers. We are this massive, beautiful, organic source technology that holds the original source seed, light and sound codes. And without going on too much of a riff, I'll just side note it to say, all the AI technology that exists within this planet and largely in the planetary systems around us are all trying to mimic the divine technology that we are. And so they're finding ways to attempt to mimic and clone that. And yet nearly impossible, because the original organic technology of the source seed is something that is found within all organic systems of creation, but very uniquely templated and created through the human template, which makes us an extremely interesting species of intelligence, of pure source intelligence that so many beings are highly focused on wanting to know, to manipulate. Okay, so just side noting that. All right, coming back. So here we are, and we're physical. And so what are we putting in? What are we, one way we can really start that's an easy and approachable way is, what are we putting into our physical bodies? The more we purify and cleanse our physical bodies, the more we're creating a faster processing speed and a greater access to reaching those imprints that were organically placed within our blueprint to experience and play out, and we can release them, right? We can create an alchemy within. But what humanity has largely sort of perhaps diluted in their awareness is how much unnecessary stuff, energy, programs are we ingesting constantly. And all these systems of energy that we're bringing in, whether it's things we're listening to, things we're watching, things we're eating, things we're drinking, all of these things are inundating our physical temple with programs. And if our physical temple has to spend all of its life force energy just moving through those programs that we're constantly inundating it with, then those programs come before we can go down to that place of the predetermined programs, right? The predetermined programs of, that we're trying to process and release so that we can become more crystalline. So in other words, what are we eating? What are we drinking? What are we eating through our ears? What are we eating through our eyes? All these types of things are participating in our processing speed of Incension, if you will. So I'll pause there for a moment because I know that was quite a bit of info to flow in.
I too wish we had another 3 hours with you, but I'm just gonna take that to possibly mean that we're gonna have you back, because there's a reason that we've reoccurringly invited you on to, well, I've reoccurringly invited you on to the podcast and to speak at the events that have been taking place in our community, Brooklyn. And it's because, well, as I think this experience was a test to, it's always a enlightening time with you. So I want to thank you for sharing, for being, for setting such a great example. And with that, I know there's also one hand up, but we are going to bring in respects to Brooklyn's time and everyone's time here, we are going to begin to bring things to a close. However, I'm going to guess that there's going to be a way to perhaps contact or senders. That is going to be all for my conversation with Brooklin Rayne. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I trust that it was able to support you in the remembrance that we're not here to ascend out of the body. We're here to incend within it, because there's a vast potential found within us, and we are in this significant time in human history where the vessel, the human body, is becoming ready to hold higher states of consciousness. And through practices like purifying the body, nurturing it, we're able to activate our crystalline potential in this process of Incension and embodying heaven on earth. And if you are ready to do this alongside a like-minded and like-hearted community of Ascenders, well, that's exactly what we're doing in the Ascend Academy. In the Ascend Academy, we are coming together to ascend together, and now some of this is taking place for these Awaken episodes where we're going to have these conversations with the guests we have on this show, as well as open things up to have the community ask their questions as well. I'm no longer going to be the only one asking them. So if you're interested and feeling called to attend and be a part of one of these experiences, I invite you to head on over to the Academy's community platform so that you can stay connected with the community and be kept in the loop of all of the gatherings that we have taking place. If you're interested, you can head on over to academy.togetherweascend.com to do so. And lastly, Ascenders, before you go, I'd love to hear from you. If you're listening to this on a platform like Spotify or YouTube that has a comment section, leave me one and let me know what you thought about the episode and what came up for you. And if you've enjoyed the episode or have been listening in and have been enjoying the show, I'm asking that you take a quick moment to review the show on whatever platform you're listening to this on. This really supports us in growing the show and getting